Welcome to the Fairhaven Artists Podcast Series on the South Coast Artist Index. Your host, Scott Bishop, will introduce you to the town's many historical and contemporary visual and performing artists. The Artist Index continues to bring you informative conversations about the historical artists and the contemporary makers, performers, supporters, and cultural impresarios. Fairhaven, Massachusetts is an integral part of the South Coast creative community. The Fairhaven Artists Podcast Series and the Fairhaven Performing Artists Podcast Series is sponsored in part with a grant from the Fairhaven Cultural Council, a local agency supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, a state agency.
Thanks again for joining the Artist Index. I'm pleased to share the second of a two-part interview with the great Fairhaven singer-songwriter Eddie Dillon. In part one, Eddie discussed his time with the Clancy Brothers, their influence on him, some stories from the road, and his new album, All for a Song. We pick up part two with further discussion of that new record, and how Eddie decided to choose the songs he most wanted to hear on the album, rather than worrying about working in a particular genre or pleasing a specific audience.
It's a little counterintuitive because, in a sense, what you're saying, it's something that I saw Rick Rubin say recently, which is somebody asked him, where does the audience fit into what you do? And he's like, they don't. They get it after the fact. I don't have an audience in mind. And the counterintuitive part of that is that you're more likely to deliver something authentic.
Exactly.
If you're not thinking about who might be listening.
Exactly. Oh, I totally get. Yeah. That is exactly right. And it's like, I did a pre-release party on May 10th at the Shepherd Center, and we almost sold the place out. And and I didn't play any of the tracks because they really hadn't been mastered yet. But I just played everything acoustically, and got a huge response from it. Huge. I mean, it was really a great night, and but my theory is, and it's exactly, I just ditto on what Rick Rubin said. Truly, yeah. So I view the All for a Song, the CD. The way I view it is like it's like the whole thing works in an arc. It starts off really as an Americana tune, and then more sort of Irishy, sort of Broadway, and ends in jazz. And it's like an arc of music that goes that way, because The Sound of Loneliness is a tune from a Broadway play, musical that I wrote called Rise. And that's one of the key songs in it. And Soft Kiss, Warm Embrace at the end, it is a jazz piece which I wrote, back in the early 80s. And but they're all songs that I like. So that was it. Oh, I like this song. Yeah, we'll use this one.
Was it a case of going back through what you had and writing new songs, or was it like, you know what, I'd like to make a record, I've got all this material, let's find the dozen or so songs that I really want to hear on this record and organize that?
Some of it was just, like, for instance, Like a Bird, I actually wrote in college. And Love to Do Over, I wrote back in the early 90s. But Bridget Hart, which sounds like the oldest song on the thing, is actually written 3 years ago. Money and Water was only written 2 years ago. And then the other ones are at different times of my life. But, so it's really all over the place. And there's a couple of other, I'm always, cooking up new songs. But you have to get it done and get it out. You need to stop and just get it done.
What was it like taking songs from different eras, essentially different versions of you? I mean, was it just for you seamless, or just thinking about how all these different songs fit together on a record?
Yeah, that's a really good question. the I think, what happens is, as you know this, you put together a bunch of songs that, you're working on, and whatever order they happen that you put them in there, sometimes that's the order that you want to hear it because that's what you're used to hearing.
Yeah.
And, one song flows from the other. It's almost like this expectation that the next song is going to show up there. And at one point, I had put these together, and I did reorder them a bit. And then there was one song which I thought was just this amazing song, but it was just too damn depressing, and I didn't want everybody to get depressed listening to the song. And so, yeah, it's, it all comes down to, I did tweak it a bit. And then, of course, my wife, Cindy, has an opinion about just about everything I do musically. and I'm glad she does because she has great taste.
And who played on the record with you? Because I know you did a lot of recording here, but you brought some other folks in.
Well, the oldest tune on there in terms of recording is Kill Maley, because I recorded that in 2003 with Bruce Foley and my friend Truck Cruteau. Bruce is well known in the Irish American circles for playing the tin whistle and playing the Ilian pipes. And Truck lives. Do you know Truck? Or did
No.
you know? Yeah, he's passed away, but he is a fantastic acoustic guitar player, and also a vocalist and someone who studied harmony. And he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But he also played the mandocello in the style of the bouzouki, and so he's playing on that tune. But we recorded that with my old Apple. I think that was Digital Performer 3 that we recorded that in, and it's now Digital Performer 11, so that tells you how old that is. So those two guys were there. Bruce, so then Tom Kennedy and Joe Zajac came in and helped me with a couple of the tunes, Tom on the tin whistle and Joe on the banjo. Then Mark Russell is the violinist on Bridget Hart. He is an amazing world-class violinist. He plays around here quite a bit.
Yeah, he was actually at the Whaling Museum for an event playing in the Lagoda. And it was amazing to have him walking around playing. Mm-hmm. He's an amazing violin player, and it sounded just gorgeous in that space.
Oh, yeah, he knocked it out of the park, what he did on Bridget Hart. Then, speaking of violinists, I mentioned earlier, Kathy Clasper Torch, who's from the Providence area. She's playing cello and violin on, and I don't want to say which ones because I honestly get them mixed up. But I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to be putting all the credits on my computer on my website because I'm overdue to get that done. But Aoife Clancy and her niece, Laurie Davies, are doing some harmonies and oohs and stuff like that. Who else? There's an upright bass player whose name eludes me. Yeah, it's right there.
Clancy?
Yeah.
Let's see. Upright bass. Marty Ballou.
Yeah, Marty Ballou, who's from Rhode Island. What a great player he is. He's on 2 or 3 songs. Who else do we have? Aoife.
Mark DeShira. on drums.
Oh yes, yeah. He's the drummer on Soft Kiss Warm Embrace, and I never met him. He did that all through John Mayo, who owns Bongo Beach Productions. Mark was one of his players, and we just shipped it off to him, and he did everything, boom, and came back with it. It was great. Oh, Jack Radcliffe on piano.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jack and I have done a lot of gigs together, and I really wanted to include him, and he did a fabulous piano piece on that. So,
I wanted to mention History because it's a great song. One of the things I really loved about it is the way that people gradually join in. It's almost like, the song suddenly it's opening up in a pub. It's like you're there, it's you solo, and then suddenly people are singing along in a call and response. And I just really like the way that the voices gradually emerge and it becomes like a little chorus.
Yeah, that's all me.
That's all you?
That's all me. Yeah.
I thought it was like 6 or 7 different people.
Yeah, it's just all me. Yeah. The miracle of morning recording.
Oh, I know. You can do everything if you want to.
Yeah, right.
I mean, was it tempting to do that with this record? It was like, you know what? The best thing I can do is bring other people in.
Yeah. The problem was it was starting to get endless because, when I decided to take do all the mixing over at Bongo Beach Productions, and then in John Mayo, I can't say enough good things about the guy. He was such a sweetheart, and talk about. I mean, I know a few things about recording, but he is the real deal, and he's just amazing with depth of experience, and I mean, he's a Grammy-nominated studio engineer.
Yeah.
And so he's, but he also was. He didn't rush me at all and let me take some things. He'd say, yeah, maybe you ought to do that one over again. So I'd come home, redo it, send him back the track. And it was all done, everything got sent over the internet. Boom.
Yep.
And, but it worked out really, really, really good. And I'm so pleased and grateful that, and a lot of people came in and did stuff that we didn't end up using the part didn't work out. I changed the whole thing. I had my friend Mark Fitzpatrick down in Florida, did a bunch of bass tracks, and just about every single one I changed the thing, and I just didn't have the time to go back and have him ship it back from Florida. And I did most of the bass tracks myself, but I mean, Mark T. Small came in here for a day and worked on some parts. And then we didn't use that song. And Mary Beth Soares was in here doing some vocals, same thing. Jeff Angeli did some cello parts that just didn't work out. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It was amazing. Was
it a case of like looking for different options, or just the recordings or the songs were changing, or just the things didn't quite fit? Everybody's got no matter what the instrument is, everybody's got a different feel for it and a different approach, and some people were more aligned with what my vision was. So then it's in, and the part could be great, but it's just not what I was looking for. Yeah.
And it's painful sometimes to tell your very good friends that I love this, but it's not what I want. And it's like it has to be. You have to view yourself as the artist, and you have to let your inner artist rule because it's your vision.
Because if it gets out there in whatever form, that's what you have to live with.
Yeah.
That's the version that's out there. It's permanent.
Yeah.
Something's on that you don't like, that's on you.
Yeah.
Not on the person who played it.
Yeah. So, and so now I'm looking for, my next project, which is going to be getting these videos done to back up all for a song and market it. And then at the same time, I've got some songs that I want to record and that I think are going to be pretty funny with the right videos on them. I've got this song called Santa Tango, which is a pretty funny song, and it's got a lot of imagery in it that I think AI is going to be just perfect for developing. And I have a live video of me doing it last Christmas over in New Bedford at the Wamsutta Club. And I'm going to morph in between AI visions of my scenes and back and forth with me playing it. So
nice.
It should be interesting to see how that works out.
Now, you mentioned your musical rise. I know at one point, because you talked to Sean McCarthy at the New Bedford Light, about doing that as a podcast. Are you working on that right now? Or is that in the pipeline?
No, it's definitely in the pipeline. Especially, I've just sort of started working my way through AI, and I'm going to be, I've already started doing some stuff with ChatGPT, but I've got a couple of at least little mini courses showing me how to do video. And I think it's going to be the way for me, because I don't have, a budget of tens of thousands of dollars to really do it properly. But I do have the brains to figure out how to do it and get something that should be fairly decent, that is going to, again, go back to bringing in people to visit the website and creating the fan base that I really need.
When did your love of songwriting start? We're going to go back to the beginning, from now to the beginning.
I can tell you when I have a stark memory of probably, maybe not the first song I wrote, but the vision of when I knew I had song in me. I was about probably 7 or 8 years old, and we lived in the suburbs in Braintree. And it was colonial village, so these small little 1948 houses that World War II veterans bought. And it was a great neighborhood to grow up with, like 1,000 kids, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like one of the younger members of the crowd of kids that we hung around with. Middle of the summer, and I was taking like this hour-long shower, and had the window open. And I used to sing in the shower, and I used to like to make up songs in the shower. And I had this song, I was going on and on about my teachers and the safety patrol, and I'm just going on and on. And I guess we'd call it riffing now, And I turn off the shower, and 5 or 6 of the neighborhood kids had been walking through our backyard and heard me there. And they were all standing there listening to me sing this song about my teachers. I'm still embarrassed about this to this day. and they didn't let that go for like probably years, right? Oh yeah, then there's a time you were singing in the shower about Mrs. Brown, I'm like, oh my God. So that's the first actual memory that I have. I have on paper in files songs that I wrote when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and and that was like the beginning of a song, because for me learning guitar was really a vehicle for me to express my songs. And also, I'd have to say, at the same time, I was writing a lot of poetry, and I still embrace poetry and any kind of written stuff, as I've done it all. But so, the poems and the lyrics go back and forth. And as you know, as a developing songwriter, I had my first gig as a songwriter when I was 15 years old, and first paying gig. I remember I get $25 for it, and I thought I was a millionaire. You know, but yeah, and you know, actually, my career trajectory back then was the folk music scene of the '60s, and I was doing pretty good. I was playing around the coffee houses in Boston. In 1969, I played at the John Hancock Hall, opening up for Jamie Brockett. Have you ever heard of Jamie Brockett? He was almost a kind of big name at the time. He was certainly in the folk music world. He was a Columbia Records artist. Columbia Records had a billboard of Jamie Brockett in Kenmore Square for 2 years. They put a lot of money into this guy. They thought he was going to be the next Dylan, but it was not to happen. He didn't have that sense of song in him. You know, he was a great player and interpreter of song, but he just didn't have what it took to be anywhere near Dylan, and or even close. I mean, you've never even heard of him. So opening up for me was Bill Staines. Do you know Bill Staines?
No.
Yeah, okay. He's in the folk music world. He's a big deal, but that's like saying you're a big deal in Boston. You know, it's not a national thing. But Bill Staines, he wrote. I think he wrote a song called "All God's Creatures." Oh God, he's written a bunch of major folk songs that, you know, if you listen to WUMB for a couple of days, you would probably hear
one or two, yeah, easily.
You know, and but anyway, so that's the point I got when I was 19 years old. Within the next year, just about all the folk clubs around Boston closed and went out of business. And I had no gigs. And I was now 1973, I was living out in Western Mass doing my senior year of school at UMass Amherst. And I got a call from a buddy of mine, said, hey, you know, if we learn some Irish songs, we can get a lot of gigs. And you can, you know, and I'm like, gigs? I'll do anything for gigs. I need money. I was a college student. We literally bought Clancy Brothers records and learned a bunch of songs, and all of a sudden all these bars were opening up and we were getting a lot of gigs. So by 1975 I was playing 3 nights a week in Cambridge at the Worst House right in downtown Harvard Square.
Yep.
And 3 nights a week. Two nights a week at a place called the Harp Bar, which was a huge Irish performance bar in Norwood. There were 3 of them, Danvers and Weymouth. Big places. They were making oodles of money, but the Irish bar thing started morphing and getting bigger and bigger. And it was, you know, for me, it was like, okay, you know, these aren't my songwriting things, but it's a way to play music and make some money, and I liked it. I liked being around, you know, my Irish roots and Irish culture, and so that was great. And I never gave up on songwriting. In fact, just about every single night we played, to, you know, in any Irish bar to this day. You know, I'd always get in some of my original tunes, you know, and so, but it's interesting. A couple of my tunes have become almost folk songs in Ireland, and nobody knows that I wrote them. But
no kidding.
Well, there's a parody that I wrote based on just think for a second. Molly Malone, you know, in Dublin's Fair City. Well, I have a parody called Juanita Suarez. In Mexico City, where the girls are so pretty, it's there that I first spied Juanita Suarez. She let her burro down streets broad and narrow, crying tacos and nachos for 5 pesos. And it goes on. that song is sung in Irish bars all over the place.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's like every once in a while I hear it and go, "Oh, should I go tell that dude that I wrote that?" No. And yeah.
You never know how it's gonna land.
People. Yeah, right.
You're pulling my leg.
Yeah. Go away. Go have another drink. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. It's all fun. Fun, and I'm still very fortunate that I'm to be 75 years old and still kicking it and having fun and making new plans. So,
what new plans do you have?
Well, number one, the AI thing with videos coming out. Number two, and this just occurred to me, is doing the TikTok thing.
Yeah.
And that's going to be using AI to do the videos. And then, I have a ton of comedy songs. So I'm thinking this one thing this world needs is more comedy, because boy, do we need to laugh. And so I'm thinking of blending those two things. And then I have a whole bevy of new songs that I'm working on that I need to complete. And there's one really, really big song. And this is really funny. I did a featured performer at the Unitarian Church last week or 2 weeks ago. And someone asked me to sing not a sad song, I don't know. They challenged me to do something, and I couldn't think of it. I said, "Well, do you mind if I just play you the chorus of a song that I'm working on?" And I did the chorus, and of course I'm not looking at the audience when I'm doing the chorus, because this is really have to really belt it out. And when I stopped, there's probably like 10 or 15 people in the audience. They were shocked. They were like, "Where's the rest of the song?"
I told you I had the chorus.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I didn't promise the rest of the song. It's not done yet.
I said, "I told you." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's gonna be a big song. It's called "I'm Tired of Being Afraid," and it's gonna be a huge song.
What's your process for writing a song? Because you talk about certainly the lyrics that you keep working until they're right. But, for instance, you have the chorus for that one. Is there a whole rest of the song? Are there portions of the song? What's done with that song, for instance?
Well, the chorus is done, but the problem I actually started working on this probably 3 years ago, and it was a whole other set of lyrics. And then it was another whole, and I do have verses to it, but I'm not happy with it, because I think that the song needs to be, it's a big song, and it needs something that is going to be, I hate to say it, but I'm a healer kind of person, and I want it to be so that all sides of the political spectrum can listen to this and say, "Yeah, that's true. That is true." And so I have a couple of ideas of it, and it's actually coming down to, and I'm not 100% sure this is what it's going to be. It's going to be the story of Noah's Ark, and it sounds religious. I guess it is. But I'm not particularly an overly religious person, except I do believe in some of the fundamentals of, like love thy neighbor, right. Really important. And, but the problem with that is that it would end up being like this 5-minute song, and I want it to be more concise, so I'm not 100% sure I'm going to go that way, but we'll see.
So is it musically there, and it's like writing the verses and getting it lined up with your vision of it?
Yeah, yeah. The hook of this song is the chorus. So once you have the hook, then you can always come up with other stuff to go around it.
Yeah.
That's what I think all songwriters do. And there's always different approaches. And I mean, I have this song that I wrote in 1974 called the Armadillo Waltz, which is like almost it's like the most well-known song of anybody that sees me play. And it's a funny song, and that song morphed from one thing into another, and I changed parts of that song like 5 years ago. So almost 30 something years later, I changed part of it. And I think, actually, this is interesting. Bob Dylan does this all the time.
He does.
And he gets up on stage and he sings Don't Think Twice, and it sounds like a completely different song. But I think that's what the creative brain does.
I mean, he was rewriting verses of Tangled Up in Blue literally years later. He's like, I didn't nail that. Everyone else is like, what do you mean you didn't nail it? He's like, nope, there's something I wanted to do there that only he could see.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Yeah. And you get, it's what I said, you got to put something out, you finish it. And it's like when I listen to All for a Song, I'm going, oh yeah, I should have done that.
I don't like that line.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I think of a better rhyme?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I want to ask about your grandma. You have a song about your grandma on the record, yeah?
Well, there's both of my grandmothers are mentioned.
Yeah.
In history, it's my grandmother that played the piano.
Yep.
And then Bridget Hart was my mother's mother.
Who was the one who played 13 instruments?
That was my father's mother, Nora Flanagan.
It's worth asking how much of an influence both your grandmothers were on you, given that they're both on the record, particularly though I'm wondering about your musical grandma.
Well, she died when I was 12 years old, but she was like, she used to babysit for me a lot, and she didn't really, when she was babysitting, she used to play cards with me and hang out. Musically, she didn't do that much, but what she did bring, and which is what I was talking about earlier, is about the Irish repartee, the sense of humor, and that I think was hanging around with my grandmother. And I mean, she always had something funny to say. It's like living with a family of comedians. I mean, they were just wildly funny. And, but what really, really stuck with me is that they would have these parties. Now, this was back in the 50s, and like I said, she died in 1962. But I remember these so well because they would sing all these old songs. In fact, I play in nursing homes once in a while, and I sing all these old songs that I learned as a kid, which people love. And I'm talking about the old sing-along stuff. But there was one song in particular that we always knew this was kind of the end of the night when my grandmother would sing this song. It was called The Shamrock Green, and it was a song that my grandfather, her husband, wrote. And it goes on, don't be ashamed of the shamrock green your country never denied. No other flower is half as sweet, I'll cherish it till I die. For I love the old flag with its hopper of gold, there's no stain on Erin's brow. Though some have denied her in days gone by, they're proud to be Irish now. That's all we know of that song. But my grandmother would sing that, and it would be time to go home because everybody would be crying. Yeah, but he actually wrote that in 1917, and he won, get this, a songwriting contest in Quincy Center.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So that's my legacy. That even though she wasn't playing stuff for us per se, but my aunts and uncles would tell me how when they were little she would play the piano and they'd be all dancing away, and this is how my father grew up with this all this song and music. And then one of my favorite stories is my mother told me this. The very first time that my mother and father had been dating, And no, they got married when my mother was just turned 20. So they had been dating from like when she was like 17, let's say. The very first time he brought her to their house, he brought her to the house on a Sunday morning. And she pulls up in front of the house, and they had a big front door with 2 glass windows on either side of the door. One of them was smashed out into the grass. And the night before, they had a party there, and my grandfather was dancing with one of his pals, and they danced through the window. I mean, this is the family that I come from. I mean, these people are just, amazing, tough survivors, and full of piss and vinegar. Amazing.
Is there anything you want to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I would say, if anything, it would be gratitude. And gratitude to number one, my wife, because she is like my biggest supporter. But to my many friends that have worked with me, played with me, come to see me play, and I owe them all just a debt of gratitude for being there for me, and of course I was there for them. But it's like I'm just eternally grateful, and all the opportunities that I've had to perform and keep on performing. I'm also grateful that my health is stuck together well enough that I can still go at it and pretty vigorously. And next week I'm doing 3 gigs in one day and still able to do it. So yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I have 5 final questions for you.
Okay.
There are 5 that I ask every musician.
Okay.
What is your first musical memory?
My first musical memory, I would have to say it would be my mother singing to me as an infant. And then from there, my sisters were 10 years older than me. And so they had all these 50s records and stuff. And all that, but also the family, even before that, the family singing together is really the best memory that I have, and the most distinct memory I have. And also, my next door neighbor played guitar, and he had this 1930s guitar that was just amazingly beautiful. And I remember the time I was always wanting to play this thing, and I'm talking about I was, 4 or 5 years old or something. And I remember the first time that he said, "Okay, Eddie, come over here." And I went over to him, standing right in front of him. He goes, "Now put your ear against the wood on the guitar and let me play something." And I put my ear against the wood, and listening to that sound of the guitar with your ears right on the wood is just amazingly beautiful. And I would say right then and there, I was destined to be a guitar player.
Wow. What's one record you'd take to a desert island?
Well, I forget the name of the record, but it's by Paul Brady, and it's the one that's got looking into a postcard, and it's got the song on it, "Lakes of Pontchartrain." And that record, that song in particular, he's got like 7 whistles on it, and he's like a world-class player. And that song I never grown tired of. That record was great. So yeah, that song, that record. But I'm actually also a big fan of classical music, And anything by Vivaldi would be probably what I'd really want to take to the desert island.
All right. Who is someone you would name as a super sneaky secret influence? Someone that if people listen to your work and you say, well, that person was an influence, to be like, really?
So super sneaky. The problem is when you have this like Jagunda catalog, it depends on what time, it's some of the stuff I wrote in the 60s, I realized, listening to them even back then, I went, oh my God, that's a Bob Dylan song. And so, yeah, and then, I've sort of shied away from playing a lot of other people's music because you end up writing the same stuff. It's just it's almost unavoidable. So, but super sneaky. I want to say Irving Berlin, and it's because of the huge repertoire that he had, and the fact that he wasn't a great musician. All he could do was play the black keys on the piano. You know that,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, I'm a pretty good guitar player. I've got an instrumental CD. Do I consider myself a great guitarist? No, I know some great guitarists, but I also know that some great guitarists love to hear me play because I have a kind of my own style and stuff, and that's fair enough. But yeah, so I'd stick with Irving Berlin.
Who's one musician, living or dead, you would love to get in your band?
I don't know. There's there's so many variations with that because my offhand I just said to myself John Prine, but I don't know if he was a great musician or not. He's like one of the greatest songwriters. And I met him briefly one time. He was a sweet guy. I talked to him for like 10 minutes. Well, actually, because this is a possibility, I'd like to get Mark Russell, the violinist, to work with me. And I've seen him play a bunch of times with a lot of people around here, and I just never had the opportunity to work with him. And he's on my album, and he's a great guy. He knows me. But I would love to do a gig with Mark Russell.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, last question. What is your South Coast happy place?
I'd have to say West Island on the beach, the town beach. And there's another little tiny beach right around the corner here, and I walk the dogs to this little tiny beach. It's at the end of Smith Road, Smith Street, and it's like 50 yards long. Nobody's ever there. You can see Cuttyhunk, you can see the harbor, the Bedford Harbor, and it's just a sweet little tiny beach, and it's as sweet as it gets. But we go down to, Cindy and I go down to West Island as often as we possibly can, go out to the town beach. And that's got to be one of the most spectacular beaches that I know of. It's not Waikiki, but it is just, and I love the fact that it's open to the public.
Yeah.
And it's as good as it gets.
Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time out. This has been wonderful.
Scott, it's been my pleasure.
You've been listening to the Fairhaven Artists Podcast Series on the South Coast Artists Index with your host, Scott Bishop. The Fairhaven Artists Podcast Series and the Fairhaven Performing Artists Podcast Series is sponsored in part with a grant from the Fairhaven Cultural Council, a local agency supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, a state agency.